1, and sharp 4. French, we add in scale degree 2. And then German, instead of scale degree 2, we have scale degree 3. All right, before we sing these in the context of a full progression, we are just going to go from 1 to an Italian augmented 6th chord. That's it, just 1 and then Italian 6. In time like we normally do on 8th notes. Ready, and. Okay. Now we're going to add on. We're going to go 1, Italian, and then French. So we're going to keep building on the skeleton, which is the Italian 6. So we'll go from 1 to Italian to French. Remember that your French augmented 6th chord, you're going to sing in triplets because it's got 4 notes. Ready, and. And triplets. Okay. Last one. Now let's add on a German. So tonic, Italian 6, French 6, German 6. And then we'll have sung all of them, and then we can put them in some progressions. Ready, and. And German. All right, fine. Now let's try some really short little baby progressions. So we're gonna go tonic, augmented 6th chord, 5, and 1. And remember, for the dominant, we are going to sing the octave on both sides. So even though it's just a 5 triad, I still want it in triplets with the 5 on each end so that we can really get that resolution of 6 and sharp 4 out to 5. Okay, groovy. Let's go with an Italian first. Ready, and. Okay. Let's add in another note and go to a French 6. So 1, French 6, 5, and 1. Ready, and go. Okay, last but not least, we have to make a little bit of a change. We're going to go 1, German 6, cadential 6, 4, to regular 5 to 1. And I still want the octaves on the top of those dominants, please. All right, last one. Ready, and. Cadential 6, 4, and 5. Okay, we'll continue that as a warm-up for the next few weeks. So now that we've sort of worked through it, we can kind of just hit it and be done with it, the beginning of class, to get everyone kind of warm and functioning. All right, wunderbar. Let's talk a little bit about our modulating progressions. Now, when I sent you out into your breakout rooms last week, or even the week before, I can't remember, you had some modulating progressions to listen to, and they all had these really sexy pivot chords that were like either diatonic to both keys, or one of them was a reinterpreted Neapolitan, one was a German 6/5 that got reinterpreted as a 5/7 of 4. Like they had all these complicated, really cool pivot chords. Today we're going to focus on how we can modulate to those same key areas, so the mediant key areas, but just using the secondary dominant. So if we just like slam a 5/7 a 3 in there, what's it going to sound like? If we just throw a 5 of flat 3 in, what's it going to sound like? So we are going to just focus on the secondary dominants. Now I'd like to start by actually going with some progressions that we're familiar with, so some modulation schemes that we already know. And the first one is 1 major or minor to 5. That was our very first modulation scheme that we learned a million years ago in Skills 2. And if we utilize the 5 of 5 to get there, so I want you to arbitrarily put yourself in a major or minor key. I don't care which one it is. I'm going to use C. So if I'm in C major and I'm going to the dominant, which is G major, it's dominant, so my 5 of 5, GBD, is built off of D. So when I'm listening to a progression, I'm listening for the bass to be on scale degree 2. If it's a 5 of 5, I'm listening for that chromatic pivot chord to be built off of scale degree 2. Now that one is familiar, and another familiar one is going to the relative major. So again, choosing C minor arbitrarily. If I'm going from C minor to the relative major, E flat major, it's dominant, E flat, G, B flat. And the thing that makes this modulation particularly slippery is that it is entirely diatonic. I'm going to put this flat in parentheses to remind you that it's not leading tone 7 that we build that pivot chord off of. It is natural minor 7. Okay, so those are 2 familiar ones. Now let's talk about the newish ones to us, going major 1 to minor 3, and major 1 to major 3. And I'm going to talk about these 2 together because they actually have the same pivot chord. So if we're in C major and we go to E minor, or if we're in C major and modulate to E major, both of those keys have the same dominant, right? Parallel major and minor share a dominant. So our 5 of baby 3 and our 5 of major 3 both have the same root. So put yourself in whatever your key is. I'm going to say C major. I'm going to E minor. E, G, B, its dominant is built off of B. So that means that our pivot chord is built off of the leading tone of our original key. Now that in and of itself is jarring. That's why those modulations, if you just plop a secondary dominant in there, catch your attention so much, but also because, okay, say we're moving to E, the dominant, B, D sharp, F sharp. If we're thinking scale degrees, that's a 7, it's a sharp 2, and a sharp 4. So that secondary dominant has 2 of its 3 pitches coming from outside of our original key area. That's why that modulation sounds so kind of distant. We're going to add one more today. We are going to add in 1 to flat major 3. Now, the very end of Skills 2, we played around a little bit with the flat major 3 harmony and the flat major 6 harmony. Now we're going to actually turn that flat major 3 into a whole key area. So let's think about what that secondary dominant is going to sound like. So a 5 of flat 3, if you're thinking C major to E flat major, E flat G B flat. So my secondary dominant is going to be built off of this time, not the leading tone 7, but flat 7. So we are going to listen to a couple of progressions, and they are all going to modulate using a root position secondary dominant. So none of these cool kind of interesting pivot chords like I sacked you with last time. These are all just going to plop onto a 5 of new key. So you might want to grab a pencil to jot things down if you are like me and you don't have a fantastic things. But we're going to listen to a couple of progressions, and I want you to make note of whether we start in major or minor, or whether we end in major or minor. And then I want you to find the pivot chord in the progression. And the pivot chord in this instance is just going to be the chromatic chord. That's your 5 of. That's your secondary dominant. So when you find the chromatic chord, then I want you to work out who is in the bass, and that's going to tell you what our modulation scheme is. So let's take a wander through this first one. Here you go. All right, I'll play it for you again. Show of thumbs. Do we start in major or minor? Let's just hash that out first. Thumbs up major, thumbs down minor. Good. We start in minor. Do we end in major or minor? Major. Good. Okay. So we're going from minor to major. That narrows down our options for what we're dealing with. If you haven't already been doing so, one perk of this is that we're not in a classroom setting, and I don't have to worry about you bothering the people next to you while you're working this out. Sing the bass line or hum it or something. If that's going to be helpful for you, go to town. So I'll give it to you 2 more times, then we'll talk. All right, here's your last listen, and then when we're done, I want you to be able to tell me if we go to the 3 or the 5. Those are your 2 options, right? Here you go. All right, let's see. Do we go to 3 or 5? Yeah, good. So we move to the relative major. I'm going to play it one more time, and I'm going to kind of chatter over it and sing a little bass line for you. So we get TPDT here, right? 1, 7 becomes 5, 1. This is the cool part, actually. Sure, 5, 5, 1. So we get a cool chromatic chord in the new key as well. But yeah, so our bass line goes from 1, pivot chord happens on natural minor 7, and then that becomes our new 5 up to 1. Okay, let's do another one. This one's a little shorter. Here it is again. So major, minor at the beginning, major, minor at the end as your first kind of guidepost. Thumbs up, thumbs down. We start in major or minor? Major, good. Do we end in major or minor? Also major, good. Okay, so your options then. We either go 1 to 5, 1 to major 3, or 1 to major flat 3. Keep that in mind. So then your pivot chords you're listening for, am I on 2, am I on 7, or am I on flat 7? Here it is again. Sing along with the bass line if you can. All right, let's take one more listen, and then we'll talk. Okay, if you haven't been singing bass line, I want you to try and sing along this time. And I'm going to sing too and kind of do the same thing I did with the last progression. Here we go. 1, 1, 7, 1, 2 becomes 5, 1, 4, 5, 5, 1. So our pivot chord was based on scale degree 2. So that means we went to the dominant. Now, one thing to consider, this is something we talked about in my earlier classes too. When we're talking about moving to the dominant or one of the threes, either major 3, minor 3, or major flat 3, think about the key signature change or the circle of fifths if that's your jam. So going from C major to E major, we talked about this last week. That's a pretty big chunk of the circle of fifths. You're going from a plain 0 key signature to 4 sharps. So you're going to expect that to sound a little more kind of startling and distant and special than perhaps going 1 to 5, because tonic to dominant, that's one click on the circle of fifths, right? They're pretty close. The only pitch that's different is that sharp 4. So these modulations to the dominant sound a little more kind of homey. They sound a little more comfortable because they're more closely related. And quite honestly, you can sometimes miss one if you're not like paying really strong attention because they're so slippery and it's so easy to get there. All right, last one. Here it is again. Let's see if we can come to a decision in 3 listens. So here's your second hearing. And here's one more time. listen again, and this time sing the bass line along with the recording. 1, 4, 5. 1, 7 becomes 5. 1, 4, 5, 1. All right, so your pivot chord is based on scale degree 7, which tells us it's one of the threes, right? We either went to major 3 or flat 3. We've got to decide what flavor of 7 it was. My 11 o'clock class, when I asked them, they were actually dead split. 50% of the class thought it was leading tone 7, and 50% of the class thought it was flat 7. And we had to listen to it a few more times to figure it out. So can you show me, let's do thumbs up for leading tone 7, thumbs down for flat 7. What do we think? You guys are split too. All right, so I'm gonna play it again. Sing along, but I'm actually gonna stop it after the pivot chord and go back to the beginning. So we're just gonna sing the first 5 chords, and then we're gonna kind of reboot and really hone in on that relationship. 1, 4, 5, 1, 7. Let's do it one more time. We're going to go back to the beginning. 1, 4, 5, 1, 7. So leading tone 7 or flat 7. Some of you changed your mind. So it is, I don't know what key it was in, but 1, 7, half step, right? So leading tone 7. So that means we went to major 3, not major flat 3. Okay, fine. Light reading to finish up. So take a look. This is in your course pack as well, if you want to just look at that. So I think it's like page 2 maybe. It's really early on. Another one of the Bach chorales. And we are going to sing the tenor line. So this is simultaneous tenor clef practice and some sight reading. So you're going to be responsible for the tenor line on solfege. Now I wrote in the cadences for you, and that is mostly to give you some sort of guidance as far as where you should be on those harmonies in terms of your solfege. So if you see a half cadence in C, that tells you you're on a G major triad, right? So the solfege coming out of your mouth should be either so, C, or re. So if you get completely lost in the water, you've got a 1 in 3 chance of saying the right words. Iax and Pax, you're going to be on a do, mi, or so, right? C major, Iax, or Pax. So it just kind of gives you some guidance. Here's a key for you. You're going to start on mi. And I'm going to give you kind of user's choice. We're going to do the first system. First time through, if you just want to speak the solfege in time without having to worry about notes, cool, go for that. If you want to try and do solfege and sing through it on your first pass, go to town. We'll sing it a couple of times, so everyone will get a chance to sing it. But for right now, if you just want to get the solfege under your belt first pass, that's fine. Everyone's starting on mi. First system, so through that fermata on beat 3 of the last measure. 1, 2, 3. Mi, re. Si, do, re, do, si. So if you were singing, you should be in this harmony somewhere. Specifically, you should be saying C and singing that pitch. Okay, if you were just speaking solfege that last time through, go ahead and try and sing through this time. If you were singing that time, you get another Another pass at it. 1, 2, 3. Mi, re. Si, do, re. All right. Notes only, how did we do? All right, cool. Solfege, how do we do? All right, I'll take it. Awesome. Let's take a look at the second system. So give yourself 30 seconds. Gets a little spicy towards the end. You're going to start on a do. So look it over. All right, we're going to run through this twice. Again, if you want to just get the solfege first time and speak it in time, go to town. If you want to sing, you can jump right in. So pick up to the second system starting on do for everyone. 1, 2, 3. Do, re, mi. Do, si. So there's your harmony, but you're actually the fifth in that terminal cadence, so you should be on a so somewhere. One last time, and then you are done for the day. Do's for everybody. 1, 2, 3. Do, re. Do, do, si. All right. Last little things. Your stuff is all due on Sunday. So if you have sent me anything the last 2 hours, I will get to that. Quizzes. So I graded any quizzes that I had. If you want to revise your quiz, that is an option, and I will have the revision quiz posted hopefully by tonight. Full disclosure, I forgot I had to do one. So I will make that tonight, and it'll be up on Google Classroom in the next few hours. Other than that, I will just let you guys know as I'm getting videos, they've largely been really, really well done. The comment that I'm making most often is, this is in really decent shape. For a plus, just do the dynamics, like all the performance things that are marked on there. So if you haven't sent in anything yet and you want to save yourself the second run through, if you're shooting for a plus, I need some dynamics on this stuff. Other than that, I've been really happy with everything. If you've got questions, hang out afterwards or shoot me an email. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Thursday. Thank you all for your work.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yep.